Hello and welcome to Matt and Mike Pull Focus. I'm Mike.
And I'm not.
And today we're very lucky to be joined by Gary Damer, a British actor who began his career in the 90s comedy drama classic East is East, before acting in sitcoms like Dead Man Weds, Hotel Trouble, and one of mine and Matt's personal favourite, The League of Gentlemen. Gary, firstly, thank you for joining us today. You know Matt from working on a film set together, is that correct?
Yeah, we met on a film set. Matt's reminded me just before we start recording 8 years ago, so I'm going to pretend like I remembered it perfectly.
Yeah, it was a wonderful experience, and Gary was playing a boom operator. He was the main character in the film, and I was the boom operator for the film. So I was lucky enough to be Gary's sort of boom consultant and teach him the ropes and show him how it was done.
Obviously, I didn't have a clue, so I was going, am I holding this long pole right? I don't know.
You were the expert on set, Matt, right? Interesting.
Yeah, well, he was a natural, and it just got a bit confusing for me because I genuinely forgot whose microphone was actually recording the sound. So it was a little bit confusing, but a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun, wasn't it? It was very silly and very melodramatic, and everyone was sort of chipping in together. It was sort of like one of those atmospheres where we're all in it together. You know what I mean? So it was good crack.
Yeah, it was sort of a 3-day. It was all filmed at the Antwerp Mansion, and it was. We had a bit of a budget, to sort of build some pretty elaborate sets and things like that, and costumes. But when it came down to, I think the smoke machine didn't turn up or wasn't working, so we just set fire to the building, basically to make smoke, and that was fine. The guy who was supervising us was like, "Yeah, that's fine. Just set fire to the place. Don't worry about it." And it worked, and it was really cool. But the health and safety was nowhere to be seen. But it was a lot of fun, and it was a great experience for me to be on this film. I didn't really know what I was going into, and then I saw Gary was there, and I recognised him immediately from East is East, and so he was kind enough to talk to me about that. And we also were filming with an actress called Sarah Jane Dunn, who a lot of people know as Mandy from Hollyoaks, and she was also in The Dark Knight, in a certain scene in The Dark Knight. So it was just wonderful for me to be able to talk to Gary and Sarah about their experiences in the industry. A lot of fun. It's probably a good segue into just talking a little bit about your career, Gary, and what it was like for you as a sort of a child actor going into such a, it's become a real British classic, East is East, and it was huge at the time, and it still is. It's kind of on the same level as like the Full Monty and movies like that really kind of defined the 90s cinema in England. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved and what your experience was like at that age?
Yeah, so I started basically going to like a drama club on a Saturdays, and there was an agent involved with that, and I'd been going for a few years, and she just said, we've got an audition for this film, would Gary fancy going up for it? I mean, Mum and Dad were always very sort of careful not to push me too hard into anything that I didn't, because I was still young, you know what I mean? I was only like 9, 10 at the time. So they were always very careful not to sort of like put too much pressure on me. And they were like, do you want to do it? And I was like, yeah, it'll be good crack. And I remember me and my dad were going to watch a United game on the same day of the audition. So I turned up to the audition in my United kit, and my dad was like, right, come on, in and out, we've got to get to the United game. And he was like, you know what I mean? No messing about.
Priorities.
Yeah. But I think in a way as well, that helped, because I sort of went in my United kit, and little things like that stand out to casting directors and directors, because it just makes you stick in their mind more. And I went in and I was saying, I think it was one of my first games. I was like, I'm going to watch United after this. So I was dead excited, and obviously, I had the audition, and we had no idea that the whole film was sold to everyone as a low budget, probably straight to DVD. It was a real passion project of the writer and the producer, because it was based on a true story. So he just wanted to get his story out there, and then a year or two down the line, and it turns out to be this massive. At first, it was like a cult hit. It was a massive cult hit, and then even now, like I think they teach it in schools, as part of RE lessons, and it's just like you say, it's just one of the all-time classic British films, which I'm so proud of that I can tick it off and say that I've done it. You know what I mean? It's definitely one that I will hopefully tell my kids and grandkids down the line for sure.
It's such a memorable role, and but also, like you say, in such an important film, like it, and it felt important even at the time, like, when you watched it, because it was kind of a subject that hadn't really sort of been put into film, to show this kind of like what the experience is like to be sort of, in Asian culture in Britain and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's a bit of a cliche question, but you had no idea that it was going to be such a big kind of make such a big impact at the time? Because, you said you just thought it was going to be straight to video, straight to DVD. Did it take a while for it to build, or was it kind of more like an instant hit?
Yeah, it was pretty soon after, because I at the time I grew up in Cheetham Hill, which is quite a multicultural area anyway. So the film came out, and obviously a lot of Asian people and mixed race families went to see it, and just hanging around Cheetham Hill, the reaction I was getting off the public, I sort of thought, wow, this is actually something pretty huge and important, because there were so many people were coming up to me going, that's like my family. My dad used to make us go to the mosque, and we'd all sit round sneaking, pork sausages and just stupid things like that. But it was across the board that I was getting so much people sort of getting on the level with it and really relating to it. So yeah, even as a young age, I thought it's pretty important. And like I say, now the fact that it's still being taught now just makes it even more humbling for me to sort of have been a part of it. And yeah, like you say, there would nothing been like that out before. It really was groundbreaking in terms of sort of
the representation of
yeah.
Like, have you turned up for your other auditions in your United kit since?
I should have done, actually. Yeah, I should have done that. Yeah, maybe the producer or something was a United fan.
Yeah. Did you start being recognised in the street more because of that role? And were you more famous among your friend group and stuff like?
Yeah, a lot more, because before then I'd only done a handful of background roles where I was just in the back of shot, and I think I'd done one or two speaking roles on programs like Children's Ward and stuff. Do you remember Children's Ward?
I do.
That was I did a bit on that, and then so East is East was really the big first thing that I did. So I was so lucky to go from sort of zero to that. It normally takes a long time for people to get a main role in a film, so I was very lucky. And yeah, the recognition out and about was pretty mad, yeah. And in school as well, it was pretty it was pretty weird.
Did you take the fame from that and use it as a catalyst to? Did you, because you moved on to Coronation Street after that, didn't you?
Yeah, I went into Corrie after that. I think it definitely all snowballed from there, really, because I think, especially as a child actor, as soon as people can see that, I'm going to be a little bit big-headed here, but as soon as people can see, first of all, you can act, second of all, you can cope with it, and third of all, you're not a bit of a freak, which seems to be... Yeah, I think a lot, you see a lot, you hear a lot of stories about child actors, and they're a bit strange and a bit odd, aren't you? So I think... especially northern actors as well, it's quite a small pond, so I just seem to be, for a little while, the go-to guy.
Right. You're thankfully down to earth enough that it didn't elevate you and give you so much of a big head and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I probably had moments, I can't really remember because I've probably blocked them out, but I'm sure I would have had moments of being a bit of a brat and a bit big-headed.
Going into your corner shop with donning the glasses, do you know who I am? Have you seen East is East?
Yeah, probably.
I know Roy and Hayley Cropper. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Well, that's it. That was me and Mike were talking about our sort of era of watching Coronation Street, and that was the era that we were really tuned into when you were in there with Roy and Hayley. So, I mean, are they as lovely as they appear on the show as they are in real life? Because they just seem like such lovely people.
Oh man, they're so nice. They're so lovely and funny, and yeah, they're just absolutely ace humans. And again, because I think I was 13, 14, and they just completely took me under the wing and really sort of looked after me. And because at the time as well, I had a tutor on set because I wasn't in school very much, so I had to do all my schoolwork in between filming. So it was hard graft, man, because you obviously long hours filming, and then whenever you're not filming, everyone else gets to sit in a green room and have a chat, whereas I had to go and do like a bit of maths and that. Yeah. So there was times where I'd be like really struggling, and they were so like nice and lovely, looking after me and, you know, calming me down in bits. And yeah, they're very nice folk.
That's great to hear.
Did you, even at that age, did you feel a little excluded, you know, because you wanted to go in the green room and live the celebrity life, but you couldn't, you had to go and do maths? Did it irritate you a bit?
Yeah, because what they did at Corrie, I don't know if it's still the case, but they had like an adults green room and a kids green room. So all the kids were together anyway. And it did feel a bit like, it was like the classroom. Do you know what I mean? When sometimes you wanted to go out and play in the big playground. Do you know what I mean? If that makes any sense.
No, totally. And we've just got to ask, because we're such big fans, like, how is it working with Mark Gatiss and like Jeremy Dyson and the League of Gentlemen? How was that?
Yeah, that was pretty. That was definitely surreal. I think It's probably the
I'm glad.
Yeah, often been used to describe him.
Exactly, I was going to say it's the overused word, isn't it? But it was the perfect word. No, that was good. That was good crack. And I remember, because I didn't know this at the time, but I watched the DVD, and there's like you know, when they have the commentary on talking about the episode.
Yeah.
And they said something along the lines of, my dad's like a Catholic, right? He's quite religious, my dad. I had to swear in the programme. I had to say fucking hell or something.
That was the punchline, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the last word you said, yeah.
Oh, my God. We were rewatching the skit. And, fuck, yeah. We were just, you know, pissing ourselves laughing, rewatching it. It's just a fantastic... sorry to interrupt you to gush, but it's just such a fantastic... It's so funny, that scene. Like,
it's just silly, hilarious. Isn't it? It's very silly. But my dad didn't want me to say it. He was like, I don't want him to swear. And they just said, well, we'll get someone else then. And he's like, oh, okay, well, hang on a minute. So I was probably this close to missing out on it.
Yeah. That's lucky then.
There was a bit in that I was watching a documentary about the meaning of life, you know, Monty Python, and they said, you know, they did the every sperm is sacred, you know, scene, and they had all the swear words, and the, you know, can't you get your balls cut off, you know, and all that stuff. Apparently they would get the kids to like say different lines, and then they would overdub it later, you know, stuff right. Like. Was there ever any talk about that, or was it just like he either does it or he doesn't? Yeah,
basically, he either says the word or we get somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah, and you were probably like, well, I was going to say it anyway. I had no issue with this.
Yeah, I do.
Because we were ready to say it.
I was saying much worse in the playground anyway. You know what I mean? Just my dad probably didn't know. But yeah, that was good fun. And again, there's another bit on the director's commentary where because I remember obviously in the episode we're basically like, it's like Knight Rider, innit? We're going to solve crime in this little Fiat Panda or whatever it was.
Maxi Power.
Yeah, that's the name of the car, yeah. And me and Mark were in the car, and I just remember talking to him about it and throwing him ideas of going, oh, we should do this and we should do that. Like, and I was feeling dead confident. And I think probably in hindsight, it's because I wasn't quite aware of who he was or, you know, his reputation and things like that. Sure. And they mentioned it on the director's commentary. They said, oh, Gary was coming up with all these great ideas. And I was listening back to it going, bloody hell, yeah. I was a bit confident of me, you know what I mean?
Did you come up with like the idea like the paper clips being like thrown out of the back of the car or anything like that? Or was...
No, it was nothing. It was all like on the day, like ad-libs and you know, little things, and rather than the actual plot lines.
Because they really couldn't have been bigger at that point. I mean, they'd had I think I'm right in saying it was season 3. Is that
season
right,
3?
Guys?
Yeah.
So obviously season 1 and 2, huge success. Season 3, even, you know, they were just absolute kings at that point. So I mean, like, you know, again, cliche question, but did you feel that going in, that you were going into this kind of like, you know, really established, really lauded comedy, you know, troupe, or was it just like another job for you?
Yeah, it's not at all, because I didn't watch it. I don't. It just completely passed me by. How old were you at this point?
I'm 32 now, so I guess.
Yeah, so you would have been around the same age then. I don't know why I completely passed me by and I never got into it. So I didn't really know anything about it at all, to be honest, which in a way made it even more weirder when I was bowling on set and seeing like Babs the taxi driver bowling around, you know what I mean?
Well, to be fair, I was the only one in my entire class who watched League of Gentlemen. I was trying to get people into it, but they were just like, this is way too dark. This is way too like...
Yeah,
you know.
I think maybe that's what it was. I preferred like knob gags and at that point in my life, maybe in fart gags.
Sure, maybe.
A little bit more light-hearted. I think you have to be of a particular ilk really to get that kind of dark humour, don't you? Like it's not always immediately hilarious. I think that on rewatches it kind of gets funnier. So I think personally, like I definitely find League funnier now than I ever did. Do you know what I mean? I think watching it on repeat and getting older with it and stuff. Because I think. In the same way, sorry to bring up the meaning of life again, but when I watched that film as a kid, it just disturbed me. It didn't really make me laugh. I just found it terrifying, and now I see the funny side. So that's the way I kind of feel about League. Is that if anything, I think it does get better with age.
Yeah, well, I've definitely gone back and watched them all again, and I've really enjoyed them. So yeah, maybe it is an age thing.
I've got to say that you were very effective in playing like a realistic kid. Like, it seemed like this kid was being thrust into this horrible situation by someone who was, too much above their station. And, it came across like, oh, God, this kid's going to die by the end of it. When you say, oh, fuck, it's kind of like, and we never see you again. It's just like, that's all that's left with us. It's like, oh, God, right, okay.
And also, you know more than him as well. That's what I love about it. Yeah. You're definitely like, you're the more intelligent party in this situation. Yeah. That's what makes it so great.
It was very fun. It was a great idea for a little side piece of the episode for sure.
And speaking of kids in danger, your film of choice has a couple of kids being terrorized by some aliens. So you've chosen Signs as your film to speak about today. Is this a personal favorite?
Yeah. Do you know what, man? I absolutely love it. Again, it's like a weird sidebar of a film, innit? It's not like a big, massive, huge film, but I absolutely love it. I think it's so clever, and it fucking terrified me as well.
Yep.
And
same.
I'm not really into like sci-fi as a genre. Like, I'm not. It's not a big thing, but I just loved it. It really got me. And also, Mel Gibson does the best piece of acting eating I've ever seen in my life. Like the night where everything's about to kick off and they all sit down and have their favourite meals.
Yeah.
And he's eating and he's dead angry and he's trying not to cry and he's eating his food. And it's so good. It's such a good piece of acting eating. I've never seen any good acting eating in my life other than that.
I'm going to have to look out for some now just to compare it. But yeah, I think you're right.
Listen, if you ever watch anyone on the telly on Coronation Street or any film trying to act while they're eating, they can't do it. You know what they do? They just move the food around on the plate. They don't actually eat anything. Or if they do, they'll take like one pea or something. But he's shoveling it in and he's acting and it's so good. I would imagine that he said to Mel Gibson, just shovel it all down, eat as much as you can and give me some of your best acting. And that's what happened. It's a good scene. It's a very good scene. And then he gathers his kids around and they're all crying. And it's just about the aliens are coming all over the house. Oh, it's so good.
One thing I never really picked up on is the two times in the film where they all come together as a foursome of a family. The aliens start speaking and like the monitor goes off in order. Like it's like when they've actually come together, they're able to fight off or they're able to recognize what's happening. And I never really picked up on that. When they're on the car using it themselves as a big antenna.
Baby monitor.
They're able to actually hear it, and then when they're hugging, that's when the attack starts happening, and they're able to hear the planning of it through the baby monitor. I hadn't really picked up on that before, but
cool.
I completely agree. This film is underrated to a large extent. I'd say that Shyamalan gets a rough go of it by everyone thinking that Sixth Sense and Unbreakable are his masterpieces, when this, I believe, is one of my favourite alien invasion films ever. Yeah, I complete. So when Matt told me that, like, oh, Gary wants to talk about science, I like punched the air and was like, yes, I can't wait to talk about this film. Yeah, so I'm really
Mike
happy.
did say that he just watched it now, but it's fair to say, Mike, you've probably seen it. I mean, 50 times at least, I imagine. It's one of your favourites, isn't it?
I nearly watch it. I have to kind of watch it every Halloween, just because it's one of my most scariest films. And like
it is, isn't it?
Yeah, when I saw it in the cinema back in like 2002, that scene where the alien walks out from behind the hedge.
Yeah, the birthday party.
Yeah, that scene gave me nightmares.
It's terrifying.
Absolutely
and
horrible.
It's so perfect as well, that scene, because there isn't like much tension in it. It's daylight, you can see everything. There's no like sort of horror movie tricks in it, so it's just, I don't know why it's so scary, but it's just perfect, because there isn't.
That's
like
why it's so upfront, isn't it? Like you say, it's
exactly,
daytime. You're safe in the daytime. There's no real. I mean, the music is there, but it's not particularly over the top.
Yeah,
and the kids are running around, and it takes your brain a while to realize what's actually going on, what you're seeing. And like Mike said to me the other day when we were discussing it, the alien is there from the start. He's camouflaged.
You can see it
if you
in
look
the hedge.
carefully, he's always in the frame. And so it's just kind of what your brain's probably subconsciously noticed it already. It's a brilliant horror construction, that scene, and really nightmarish, like Mike said.
The first time you see the alien on top of the roof.
Yeah.
I didn't see it the first time when I was in the cinema, but like everybody else in the audience did, and screamed so loud that like I was just like, oh my god, what? And like for the rest of the entire duration of the film, I was like, oh god, anything could happen at any moment, and I'm not going to notice it. So I was just on edge all the way through. Absolutely,
I love how early that happens as well. Like it happens like within the first 15 minutes or something. Like so, and it's great because, like you said, Mike, if you do see it, if you're lucky enough to catch it, you basically seeing the alien straight away, but it's right there, and then your brain has to catch up, and you're like, oh shit, like that's what we're dealing with. And I thought that was really kind of brave, of a movie to like almost show the monster pretty much straight away. Like show it, and the scenes where they're chasing around the house, trying to find what they think is just, those are the neighbors that are fucking with them. If you rewatch those scenes again, you realize the alien's right there, just running around the house and fucking with them, and it's
so intense. It's so intense.
Scary.
But despite all that, apparently in the first hour, you only see aliens for 11 seconds. Of like the first hour of the film, and it's all suggestion. You just see the leg in the crop field. Another thing that scared the hell out of me. You see it on top of the house, and you see like the shadow of it in when they're chasing the Wolfington brothers around the house, and but it's all just suggestion.
That was the bit, the chase around the house. That's the bit that got me the most, because you just think to yourself, if the camera was 2 seconds faster, you would have literally seen a full-blown alien just there, and it's like, and as the audience, you kind of know, but the characters don't know, because they're there willing to get, to confront it and to confront the neighbors or whatever, and it's an alien, don't do it, it's just it's amazing.
But that's why I love when the alien does step out from that hedge and you see it for the first time, you're in the point of view of Joaquin Phoenix's character, but like he starts as a non-believer who thinks it's just people messing with them, but then like steadily he gets more invested in it and more believing in it, and like you as the audience are as well, so that when that alien steps out and he sees the horror and like the shock on his face, you're right there with him, and it's just such a great build-up of tension and dread all up until that moment where it's just like, oh god, they're actually real, they're coming for us, this is it's just brilliant,
and it's so perfect. Like I can't remember chronologically because it's been a while since I've seen it, but like a few scenes later they're all sat on the couch with the tinfoil hats
he's
and
one
like,
of them.
Mel's like, not you as well, he's like,
that kind of like relieves the tension, doesn't it? Like, it's kind of funny image to sort of keep you, it sort of yo-yos you about, doesn't it? Like it's terrifying, then it's funny, and then it's like a family drama. The thing that struck me, I probably hadn't seen it for about 9 or 10 years, to be honest with you. Like I'd seen it quite a lot when I was younger. Watched it probably about 9 or 10 years ago. On rewatching in the last couple of days, what struck me was it's kind of an amalgamation of elements from all of my favorite films, because it's kind of like The Exorcist in the way that the priest has lost his faith. Kind of thing, and somewhat regains it throughout, these experiences. It's also very much like a Spielberg movie. I think I would, if you'd shown me this movie and hadn't, told me what the director is, I would have assumed it was Spielberg. It just feels like with the family element and the obviously the alien element as well. So it kind of had things like that, and also it's got that kind of. I was reading watching a couple like video blogs about it, and they were talking about how the aliens could be more like a metaphor for the demons, that they're facing. For example, like the demon, the alien being locked in the pantry is like the demon of his wife's death and stuff like that, because it's related to Shyamalan's character. So it's like it's sort of multi-leveled. It can, it's got lots of metaphor in it, and it's also kind of a religious allegory as well. It's like a religious story.
Lots of
so it's just got loads of symbolism, and I think that's probably why I enjoyed it so much, which I'd never really realized until now, just how much is actually going on in it.
I've always been more of a literal, and I appreciate that they're all probably hidden meanings and hidden levels in there, but I've always watched the film a lot more literally, and gone, fuck, there's an alien in the pantry. Cut his finger off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm always at risk of overanalyzing, Gary. That's definitely what you have is a virtue. Do not worry. I was going to ask you before, because obviously this is such a big, a favourite of yours. Are you into sort of sci-fi horror in general? Would you say you're like a horror fan, or is it more sci-fi? Or
not at all. I mean, I like scary films. I like films that make me jump, but I've never really had a particular sort of genre of film that I like. So this is why it's always a bit more unusual that that's my favourite film. The amount of people that say, "Oh, what's your favourite film?" and I go Signs, and they either go, "Really?" or they go, "What? What's Signs?" They don't know what it is. Yeah. And so I don't know why. It's just for all the reasons we've just said, really, I guess. But yeah, it's not because it's my favourite genre or anything like that. But
to be fair, I kind of respect people who have stuff like that. When I ask someone their favourite film, they say Pulp Fiction or something, Shawshank, the obvious ones. I'm kind of just like, oh, you've got no originality in you. But when people say, not to offend the people who are listening who Pulp Fiction, Shawshank, but when someone comes out and says something obscure, like Signs would be, I'd be just like, damn, you've obviously got a connection with that film that speaks to you in a way that something else wouldn't. And that's a good sign, if anything, So yeah, I wouldn't look down on you, that's for sure.
Well, I appreciate that, Mike. there's so many good moments in it, and then obviously when it all unfolds towards the end, and you realise why everything's happened, why the kid's got asthma, and why Joaquin Phoenix has got that baseball bat on the wall. You know what I mean? It's just it's everything happens for a reason, and that's like the sort of finale of the film. Yeah. And I remember watching it, just going, "Wow, man, it's so simple, but so effectively done." And yeah, it's just such. And the kid drinks, she can't have more than one sip of a glass of water, can she? So there's glasses of water all over the house. Yeah. And then that turns out to be what kills the aliens, doesn't it? But I just loved it. It was dead simple, but I just thought it was brilliant.
The simplicity, I believe, is a real big factor in why I like it. The fact that Shyamalan apparently wanted to make it an alien invasion film, but just from the point of view of just one family. I respect that massively, because even in, say, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, it has to eventually end with the aliens coming down and meeting them, and you always see what the government's up to, and you hardly spend that much time with Richard Dreyfuss compared to the massive story that's behind it all. But in this, you're with Mel Gibson in every scene, and it's just everyone says oh, why? What? How are they able to scare off the aliens so quickly? But it's it happens over the course of 2 or 3 days, and that's it. And the crop circles arrive, and then they're invading as soon as it happens. So it's just done over such a small amount of time, but still has such an effect that when, like you say, when they're crying around the dinner table and he's just shouting, "Enjoy it!" You just feel I understand where this has come from, because it's all just been building and building and building, and we're relating to these characters so well that I want them all to survive. Even
absolutely, absolutely.
They made me care for Mel Gibson. It's shocking.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say.
Sorry, it had to be said.
Good. I'm glad we broke the elephant in the room has gone.
Yeah, no, it's a shame, isn't it?
It is. Sorry, go on, Gary. You were saying
the bit in the when they're in the cellar as well, and again the use of the camouflage. When the alien's hand comes over the grid.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
Oh, it's just so good. Little moments like that, and again, I think it is the simplicity in it that it's not massive billions of pounds on sci-fi budgets, and loads of tricks and tips. I just think it's great. That's simple. And
it's what they don't show. The fact that when they arrive at the house and they've all boarded up the doors, you can hear the dog barking, but then it disappears, or it goes. Or
sad.
The crickets are chirping in the crops, but then they stop. And then something's happening. It's all suggestive. It's all you can hear the aliens walking, but you don't see anything. And it's all in your mind's eye.
It's always less is more, isn't it? With these films, and especially in the horror genre. And what I really loved was later on, when the alien is standing right in the living room, you see it mostly through reflections, and through the glass on the table and the reflection on the TV. And it's almost like there's a few shots where it's in plain sight, but a lot of it's done like that, and it's kind of has this distorted look to it, almost and I love that, because I think the best Jaws is like the prime example. Like you really hardly ever see the shark until the very, very end. And American Werewolf and Alien, there's this monster movies are always better when you don't really see the creature because, most of the time it's not really about the creature anyway, per se, it's always, kind of working on different levels. But so I think it has the best elements of like really great horror movies, really great sci-fi movies in the sort of Spielberg sense. And it's just and like you said, Gary, it doesn't feel like a super high budget film. If you replaced the two lead actors, you would assume it was a sort of a $20,000 sci-fi movie, independent movie. It really doesn't feel like a blockbuster.
Absolutely, I'm always intrigued with how particularly kids are on horror movies. Like I wonder if they're aware of how scary it is, or if they're scared themselves, or do you know what I mean? Like if there's maybe not as much as The Exorcist, but like I wonder if they have to go through some like trauma to get the reaction out of them. And I don't know. I'm always slightly intrigued by it.
Well, I think Linda Blair said, who was in The Exorcist, she said that she didn't find it scary at all, because she's the one in the makeup, so she's just looking through it. But apparently the director did, William Friedkin, said that he did talk about the death of her grandparents.
Oh wow!
To bring these like emotions out of her. He definitely went there to sort of get that emotion. So I think it's a lot going one way and very little coming the other, if that makes sense. It's like they're not actually scared of being there, I don't think, because they can see the strings, but maybe the directors are going to extremes to get the sort of emotional reactions out of it.
Pushing a few buttons.
You make a good point, because this is like Abigail Breslin's first film, and I feel like she has the stage presence of like a child who's been acting for ages, like a Chloe Grace Moretz or something. But Rory Culkin does a really good job of just being kind of like the straight man in terms of he takes it all seriously from the beginning. He like has all the information, he has all the exposition about what to expect from the aliens. But like even as that, I felt like Shyamalan really respected the audience enough to not have so much exposition, so like you can figure it out anyway. Like there's one thing like I didn't pick up on until maybe like the third or fourth time that I was watching it is at the beginning when everything seems to be okay, but their dog starts like weighing on the floor. And like they don't know why, but obviously it's because like they're sensing the aliens' presence and stuff. Graham Mel Gibson comes in saying, "Oh, we're gonna have to call the doctor," and they're saying like, "Oh, but he doesn't treat animals." It's like, "Oh, he'll figure out what to do." And like it was just a throwaway line that I never really picked up on the first time. But the fact is that their local vet, is M. Night Shyamalan's character Ray Reddy, who killed the wife.
Oh yeah, so they don't want to call him.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't want to contact the vet to try and figure out the dog, and like, exactly. So like, I didn't pick up on that until ages, and like, it means nothing to the story, but it's just like a little small thing that Shyamalan put into it that makes it, I don't know, worthwhile watching on multiple viewings to pick up on. Bit.
Speaking of Shyamalan as a director, like, do you have any love for his other films, Gary? For example, like The Sixth Sense or Unbreakable, or any of his The Village?
It keeps getting worse and worse, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Last Airbender.
I didn't even bother with that one, but definitely not The Village. Do you know what? The Sixth Sense is all right, but I think it's just it's one of those now that's so obvious and just been overplayed, and so I can't.
Its fame precedes it, doesn't it? Really.
Exactly, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all right, I guess. But he has had a hard ride because he did some really good films and then like 3 or 4 shit ones, and then they, as the way everything goes, they sort of become your legacy, don't they? The shit ones, which is a shame.
He seems to be making a bit of a comeback, though. I'd say with Split, I thought that he was like, return to form. I didn't see The Visit, but I heard that was good. But in terms
I've not watched Split yet.
Oh, you haven't? It's fantastic. It really is good.
Yeah, those ones were really critically lauded, weren't they? I mean, like Split, and was there another one after that, Mike? What was the one that was like the sort of
Glass was the sequel to Split.
Yeah, I mean, they were both pretty well regarded, weren't they? I didn't have any time for them, to be honest. I watched Split and
Not even
thought it
Split?
was incredible. Oh, I didn't know. I didn't get it at all. It didn't sink its teeth into me at all. But so therefore, I didn't watch Glass afterwards because I just wasn't interested. But my most of my friends were absolutely like absolutely adored it. Thought it was brilliant. So I think it could have been that overhyped thing. When you come to a movie after everyone's saying it's the second coming, and you go to it and you're like, you know what I mean, and then you're like, it's all right. It's like that kind of thing. But,
well, Gary, you're gonna have to be the tie vote now. It seems.
I'll let you know when I watch it.
Yeah, you're gonna have to be the deciding one.
Come back on and let us know. I'm really glad you didn't say your favourite movie was The Happening, because we would have been here like cutting our teeth off. Yeah.
What would you do? Would you have to pretend that you like it, or would you try and convince me that it's a shit film?
I'd say I respect you, Gary, but I cannot agree with you at all.
As host, you've got to be diplomatic, so I'm glad you like the choice of film anyway.
Yeah, and we genuinely do, and like it would have been, I don't know what we would have done. I think maybe I just would have blocked you. I don't know, just to avoid confrontation. But no, of course not. We would have had you on and heard you out.
To be fair, if it was The Happening, I would have given it another go and tried to, because I saw it in the cinema. I had so much hype about it because I believe that was his 5th film after he did Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, Signs, and The Village, all of which I really liked. Even The Village, sorry to say, Gary. But
I liked The Village, actually, to be honest. I really think it felt very original when at the time. When I saw it. I think it might not kind of stand up too much now, but I quite enjoyed it at the time.
Sorry.
No, go on, Gary. Go on.
I was just going to say, to give him his credit, I think that is his forte, isn't it? He does do very original, sort of untraditional Hollywood films, doesn't it? Yeah. So you've got to admire him for that, because it probably goes through a lot of meetings in Hollywood where they go, nah, mate, we're not making this film. Mm-hmm. And he's going, I promise you, we've got to make it. And they're going, nah, he's got to go to all these different studios. I would imagine, because they're just so not typical, are they? So fair play to him.
I try not to sort of sneer at any movies, because it's just so difficult to get a movie made.
You never have a background idea.
And so it's that kind of thing. And obviously, everyone who's in it put in 110%. So it's like, I don't like to sneer too much. And at the end of the day, even something like The Happening, which I regard as pretty much a failure as a movie, it's still very entertaining to watch. Like on that kind of Edward, Tommy Wiseau, whatever his name is.
The guy who did The Room,
The Room, yeah. So
I feel like I think he's described it, where he's described his career up until that moment as, I became the twist guy. I became the guy just as the films of the twist, and became like a victim of his own success. In a way, he had made himself into this model and had to try and fit it, because no one was hiring him unless it was going to come with a Shyamalan style twist. So in a way, it kind of needed to fail in order to rebuild himself as an actual proper director, ironically. So, yeah. But I feel like he's back to it now.
To do like a hard reset, he had to fuck it all up and then go, right, well, we've done that now.
I've done After Earth with Will Smith, and now I can actually go back to doing good stuff. Such a big shame.
Guys, we're coming to the end of this podcast. So thank you very much again, Gary, for coming on and sharing your thoughts with us on Signs and telling us about your life and career. It's been really, really brilliant. Could you just tell us a little bit about what you're up to now? I believe you've got a sports podcast. Is that right?
Yeah, me and one of my best pals, Dean, we've got a podcast called Behind the Medal. So basically, about 5 years ago, I went for my first ever run, like literally my first ever run, and it changed my life. I now run marathons. I do triathlons. I've done a couple of Ironman triathlons.
Damn.
And we realised that in the podcast market, there was nothing out there for sort of... we call ourselves casual runners because we take it very... We have a drink, we have a beer, you know what I mean? We're not like... It doesn't change our lives in as much as we take it very serious. And there was nothing out there. It was all very preachy. It was all about, you need to be running this fast. You need to be wearing these trainers and spend this much money on this T-shirt, you know what I mean? So We've done it as very much as a common person. And... it's all about our stories, and it's very silly and light-hearted, but with a message of get out and run, because it's very good for your mind and your soul and your body.
True.
It's called Behind the Medal, because the theory was, when you do an event, or 10k, 5k, marathon, whatever, and people take that shiny photo at the finish line with a medal, that happened.
Yeah.
you never hear about what goes in behind the medal. You know what I mean? Like the practice, the training,
Nice.
the shitting yourself on the side of a road because you can't find a toilet. You know what I mean?
All been
Mate, we've all been there, and nobody talks about it. I didn't know it was a thing until I ran my first marathon. Honestly, I crossed the finish line and I was about 30 seconds away from just exploding.
Wow.
But I used to listen to podcasts, and nobody ever told me that was going to happen. so
that's so irresponsible, isn't it? Not to let you know. And I understand now why they have the portaloos at the end of marathons.
There you go. Well, not to worry, because we've got that covered for you. We can tell you how much you're going to shit yourself.
That's really ironic as well, because like the amount of people that I speak to listen to podcasts while running. So it makes sense that you've actually got a casual podcast about running to listen to while you're doing it. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, we've had some really cool guests as well. We had Danny Mills, he's an ex-footballer. Scott Conlon. We had Ed Sheeran as well. That was quite cool.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that was a good day. But yeah, it's a good behind the medal. So wherever you get your podcast, type it in, and there's loads of episodes for you to listen to.
That's great.
Well, that's brilliant. That sounds like I'm not. I mean, I don't even run for the bus, so I'm not really a fan of sports or anything. Well, last time I did, I shat myself. So
on the side of the road.
But, that sounds like a sports themed thing that I could get behind. That sounds really, really cool, man.
Yeah, because it's not very preachy and heavy. It is just funny rather.
That's the side of sport I can't stand. Is that? Exactly. So I'm sure that it sounds like you've got the antidote right there, man. So Gary, thank you so much for making time and coming on. This is a really, really big deal for us to talk to you. You're in some of our favourite things, ever, and just to hear from you and to be such a nice guy and be so down to earth about that is really encouraging. So thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having us, boys. It's been good crack, that. Thank you.
Right, and I think it's just one thing left to say, Mike, whatever that thing is.
Yeah, thank you for joining Gary, Matt and myself today. We're going to continue these guest episodes of Pull Focus throughout 2021. So if you'd like to hear more from us, subscribe to our channel and be sure to like this video. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter by searching for the name Matt and Mike Pull Focus. Say goodbye, Gary.
Goodbye.
Say goodbye, Matt.
Bye, Matt.
Oh, I missed the gag, did I?
You didn't know the gag?
Yeah, you didn't know the gag. And that's goodbye from me too. Goodbye.